You are now entering the world of a movie review. A world full of drama, joy, ridicule, movie spoilers, unpopular opinions, and adult humor for as far as the eye can see. Welcome to An Evening at the Movies.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to your favorite movie-based podcast, the show where we eat stale popcorn and we drink watered-down sodas and we discuss all of our favorite movies and why we love them. This is An Evening at the Movies, as you could tell from the intro. If you couldn't tell, I don't know what to tell you. It was pretty big on the screen, and Amanda's got a pretty loud voice. So we love you, Amanda, and that's just how it is. But we are joined today by a brand new guest on the show that is making her debut on the show. So please um, forgive me because I did not ask before we started recording,
And I
and
didn't
I
say anything.
probably should have, but I'm going to assume it is Teresa Carnegie.
Partly. It's Teresa Carnegie.
The half I got wrong was the one I didn't think I was going to get wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, so Teresa Carnegie.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Would you like to tell everybody on the show about yourself and what it is that you do?
I am, sure. So I'm in Vancouver, Canada, and I am a writer, self-published author, and self-publishing coach. So I teach entrepreneurs, coaches, how to self-publish their first book, and they then have the knowledge and the confidence to self-publish more books and create a new income stream.
Nice.
It's
Which
fun. I like it.
I will say this self publication is something that definitely 100% fascinates me
Cool.
because as I'm sitting here right now, I have my
Ah,
large 3-inch binder here that has all kinds of notes from all kinds of different writing projects that I have.
nice.
And getting published has always been a dream of mine. It's something we've talked about on the show before, but it's definitely something that I'm finding more information out there about self publication and all of that. And it seems to be, at least from the way I'm looking at it, probably the easiest way to go for an unknown writer to get their foot in the door.
I mean, the reason I chose it was I would have control over the timeline, and I have control over, basically every aspect of the book. I hire, editors and graphic designers for covers, but you still
Mm.
have the final say when you self-publish. And timeline is up to you. You don't have to wait an hour an hour, a year for the, publisher to do all their pieces and put it out. You don't have to wait. I know somebody that there were problems with, I think it was editors or something, and their book ended up being 7 years before it was published. So there's, and I also know somebody who works with a smaller publishing company and has her books published in 3 to 6 months, I think it is. So, but it's also, I didn't want to have to have approval by others. I knew what I wanted to do, and I wanted to learn it for my own income stream was the idea, right? And I was new to writing, and I thought this seemed, didn't want to have to deal with the approval or lack of.
Because at the end of the day, it's your vision for what you want.
Yes.
And going through major publishing houses,
You have your vision, but you
they
do also,
have to amend your vision to meet their standards.
yeah, with the publisher, they are going for the biggest hit. They want to hit obviously they're when it's traditionally published, you license your rights to that story. And so they only have it for however many years the contract is for, the lease is for,
Mhm.
and or the license. And so they want to get a big push. They pay money to you, usually part of it in advance, and it's a big push for them to get it out and get it, because they aren't known for republishing. They do one publish run, and that's usually it. So hence they go big. But whereas if you are self-published, an indie, publisher, you have access to this whole library of whatever you've created for
Mhm.
life, and your marketing and your sales can be reflective in that way. So yeah, you still want to make industry decisions, like a cover. You still want the cover to flow with the genre. You don't want everybody in your genre, to have one look, and you have something so far out there that everyone's like, what, that's weird, I'm not even going to look. So you do want, a cover designer that understands the genre that you're writing in, so that they can create a cover that works with your vision, but also is done in a way, because fonts, colors, layout, that kind of stuff all matters to the genre. And if you think about it, if you're writing cozy mysteries, for example, usually have an animal on them, and that's a big thing. Another thing is, if it's what is that genre? Suspense, I believe it is. There's always somebody running. There's a shadow of the person, and usually what it does is, when you create the cover, it creates it so that the center is the focus. And
Mhm.
if you don't understand your genre and all of these kind of little nuances, you might not have a cover that attracts readers to even look at your book, because there are a lot of published books in the world. So you want to have these little pieces in place to help you.
That actually makes a whole lot more. I'd never thought about it from that perspective.
Mhm.
I mean, I get the whole the cover is your first impression
Mhm.
to your readers, so you have to come up with something that's going to grab your reader and make them pick up your
Yes.
book, and
Yeah.
hopefully once they pick it up, they're willing to take it up to the cash register and put 10, 15, $20, whatever the price on the book is,
Mhm.
down and pay the money for your book,
Yeah.
and then keep coming. And then by the time they get it home, open it and read it. Hopefully, you create that environment where they're willing to come back and check you out again.
Exactly.
But yeah, I hadn't thought about. Obviously, you don't want to have a murder mystery and you know have rainbows and sunshine and
Exactly.
flowers all over your cover
Yeah.
if
Even though
that's
you're
not
like,
yeah, even if that's not what your story's about, then you don't want to have it be the focal part of your cover.
well, you could even say, "Oh, my main character is a sunny, cheerful person who loves rainbows and unicorns, so I want that on the cover." But that's not falling in line with the genre, so people aren't going to understand what your book is about. So you want the genre to speak to, so you want the cover to look really good to draw the reader, to draw a
Mhm.
potential reader in, but you also want it to match the genre so that they understand visually what they're going for. And then, then you've got things like the blurb. You want the blurb to be done in a way that they're like, oh, ooh, yeah, yeah, I'm gonna have to click one, do the one
Yeah.
click. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. So there's pieces of it that all fall in.
Well, I mean, it makes sense because you know if you've got a book that says your title, for example, your title is "Murder at blah 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 blah," and then you've got, like I said, rainbows and flowers and unicorns all over the cover. You might get somebody that sees the name on the spine, pick up the book, and then they turn around and look at the cover, and it's like, okay, put it
Yeah,
back.
exactly. It's confusing.
So
Yeah.
it, yeah, they don't get it. Where if
Yeah.
you know they would just open the book and read a couple of chapters, then they might get it and, oh, okay, I see the point here, what they were going for.
Yeah.
But if you don't get them to want to open that cover, then you're basically you wasted your resources.
Exactly. And your book is marketing itself. It's, when you stick it out on, I mean, I'm going to use Amazon because I tend to teach people to self-publish on Amazon because it is the number one book seller. And it, when you stick it out there, each piece is marketing that book for you. So yes, your book has to be written very well to hold the reader in, or well enough to hold the reader in. But the marketing starts with that cover, and then it goes into the blurb, and then the book is what they're getting for being drawn in by those two things. It's a whole thing.
It sounds probably a lot more complicated than it really is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's really one thing you can do when I tell my clients in the beginning, when we start working, is start looking at other people who are selling their books in your genre and look at what their covers are like. And then when you open up, you can look at those samples on Amazon, and it'll tell you, usually in those samples will give you enough pages that you can see who the cover designer is. So you can always contact them, because the other thing is cover designers, editors, some of them are booked out, a year in advance. So if you want to have your book published in the next few months, it's not going to happen with that one person. So you need to have, do your research for your cover designer in that way by looking at what other people are selling. And it also gives you an idea of what you might want your cover to look like, gives you some ways to play with your ideas. And then, same with when you're reading a book. If you read that whole book and you didn't get pulled out of the story from errors, look up that editor and see what they've got availability on, and if they work on your genre. Because not all editors work on the same genre, not all cover designers work on all genres. So it's really good to, start your research in the beginning by reading and looking at other people's stuff that are selling.
I had never thought of that either. Well, I mean, and like the other thing while you were talking about that came to talking about looking at other authors in your preferred genre. I
Mhm.
can imagine there's certain authors you might not necessarily want to necessarily compare with because they have the huge grandiose name that it doesn't matter what is on the cover anyway. When people see the author's name on the spine, it's like, okay, got it, gonna go buy it.
I actually I've heard some authors talk, very well-known authors, and they also do, they're more, they've got the time, they've got the money, so they can do more market research, and they will put out a cover. And if it's not selling well, they'll that's the other thing about self-publishing. You can redo your cover. You can fix errors in your book and redo it and put it up there. So, I've heard of big names who have one cover, it didn't do so well. They put out they redid their cover and put it out, sold way better. And it's just different things like that. But they have the more of the people and money that they can do that kind of market research. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Sometimes my headset does
There
that.
we go. Okay.
I was just gonna say, I think that would explain a lot of the reason why there's times where I've seen even like Stephen King has released a book with a certain cover,
Yes.
and maybe like a month later, 2 months later, whatever the case may be, you'll see the book come out again, but it'll have a different cover on it.
Yes. Yeah.
Not very often
No.
because
Um,
he does
but they,
name that we were talking about.
yeah. And that's the thing. And I know that other authors, like I know indie authors, for example, who maybe had a book that's been out for a long time, and then they'll change the cover. And, everybody's like, why'd you change the cover? I love this cover. But the thing is, markets change, and what attracts the readers changes. So, this gives them a chance to, when they've self-published, it gives them a chance to do up a new cover that matches with what's selling in the market, and republish, it's not, you're not really republishing, you're just putting it out with a new cover, and it can attract new readers that way, so you're always thinking marketing when you've in that with the cover. Doing it again. It's
Okay. Now?
It sounds like you're in a cave.
Mm,
Oh, there we go.
okay.
Maybe. Yeah, I can hear.
Okay. So hopefully my technology will hold out. So um, definitely a whole lot of information that is
You weren't
definitely.
expecting.
Well, no, I I'm not. I wanted to talk to you about some of this stuff because, like, I knew you were in self publication,
Okay.
and I knew that that's a road that I'm going to be looking at in the semi near future as I try and get some of my stuff out there and published. So,
Nice. Well, I mean, for
um,
example, my very first book was a 17-page ebook that I used two articles I had written for other people's websites that I didn't get paid for, so I still owned them, and I put them together into an ebook and I got a graphic designer or a cover designer and an editor, and I made the book free on all major retailers, and it's called Solo Female Travel. Although sometimes Amazon in certain countries charges. But it was a really good example of how you can take something, and it doesn't necessarily have to be 100,000 word novel or part
mhm.
one of 20. You can just dip your toes in with something that you've already had created and give it a try, throw it out there, and just learn the experience. And um, I mean, it's a costly experience if you're going to put out a free book, but I personally am happy I did it. It all depends on what you're looking for and your goal.
I feel like it's probably a good learning experience,
Hmm.
so that okay, what did I learn from doing this smaller project? Now let me take what I've learned and try and expand it into something maybe a little bit more.
Well, by learning that on a smaller project too, you're not. So, for example, if you are going to be self-publishing a book, a novel, they say you should have like a year or two of making connections in the online world, in the with readers, so that when you go to publish your first book, you've got a base to work with who are interested and wanting to read this. So by putting out something that you've already created, a little smaller, kind of thing, you can learn the process while you're also making these connections and creating this community. So you don't feel like, I don't know, for me personally, if I were just to create a community, I'd be like, what's the end goal? What am I doing here? How is this benefiting me? Because I can't see how it's benefiting me. So for me, it worked to be able to have that. And then, like I've never written fiction. I'm trying to write fiction. It's not as easy as just get that story out of my head. That story is stuck in there pretty good, and the words on the page don't come out quite the same way. And then there's all the extra edits to fill all the pieces and make it better. And so it's taken me a little longer. So what I've done is I've created journals, I've created notebooks, I've created planners, for readers, and I have a mental wellness workbook, like all things that I can keep using my creativity, keep self-publishing, keep putting products out in the world while I'm trying to create this what I really want to do, the goal, kind of thing.
Yeah. So I don't want to cut the discussion short because I am thoroughly enjoying learning all the ins and outs of the self publication.
But we are
But
here to talk about a movie.
I I do believe there is a purpose for doing this episode,
Seems like there
and
could be.
I think we were here to discuss a movie.
It could be.
May,
I
may,
feel like that sounds familiar. Yeah.
um, so when Teresa and I connected and came up with the idea for doing this appearance, she selected a movie off of Netflix that I'm not going to lie. Her selection is the very first ever Netflix original that we will be discussing on the show.
Okay.
So,
I don't know if I'm used to being the first. Okay. Can I do
I
this?
mean, it's not like it's a whole big deal, but at the same time, it's still a big deal because you get to be first.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I mean, I would
So,
like to just throw out the thing is that I have a problem watching movies more than once. So you were very generous, Casey, in letting me pick something I hadn't seen before, a newer show. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
well, I don't remember if this topic came up in our initial discussions or not, but one of the reasons why I love, especially the first couple of times, like doing this is because it helps create a comfortable environment between myself and the guests,
Valid
so
point.
that hopefully, it's a very friendly back and forth, to and fro kind of banter.
Hmm.
Where if I was to myself pick a movie and you're like, oh, I kind of sort of have feelings for that, but you're not necessarily at that same level that I'm at,
Hmm.
and it's like,
My preconceived notions could interfere in a conversation.
yeah, and the conversation can get kind of choppy and not flow, and
Yeah.
it's like I won't name episodes or particular guests, but because I love all of my episodes, but there have been times where I felt like conversations were going to be great, but then it just the show didn't meet that standard that I had preset in my head.
Understandable. Yeah.
So, so I like the idea of doing it this way. That way, if it's something that you are passionate about, then if I haven't seen it, then I can check it out, and then it's on me to have to deliver a quality episode, which I feel like in the last almost 3 years I've gotten decent at doing. I'm not I'm not Jimmy Kimmel or you know um, Jimmy Fallon or any of Stephen Colbert, anybody like that. But I enjoy doing this, and I enjoy talking to people about something that.
That's the best
that
place to start, enjoying it. If you don't enjoy it, nothing's going to come out of it. So
well,
that's
yeah,
awesome.
because at the end of the day, and I'll get to it at the end, but I think February 10th will be our third anniversary, and probably a week or 2 weeks after that, we're going to be hitting our 200th episode.
That's exciting. Congratulations.
So thank you. I am very excited to reach both of those milestones because um, starting off with the show, a lot of people, well, when you're an independent podcaster, if you can get through that first 6 months, then
Mm.
you've got something.
Yeah.
And I hit that 6 months, and it's like I still really love doing this, so we kept going and we kept going. We hit a year, and then we hit 2 years, and now it's like again, 3 years is coming up here in just a couple of weeks, and I actually scroll through and counted on Spotify how many episodes, and it's like, oh wow, we're sitting at like 192 as of this episode right now.
Holy.
So it's really, really close to some big milestones, and there's some good podcasts that I've listened to that didn't last 3 years. They didn't
Oh,
put out 200
oh,
episodes.
wow.
So
See, so my
Definitely.
congratulations is awesome. Yay!
I appreciate that very much. So before we get into the discussion, obviously you've heard a couple episodes and we do a little bit of background, some of the under the surface information about the movie, but we are going to be discussing the Netflix original Pain Hustlers, which released on October 20th, 2023, is directed by David Yates. As I said, is a Netflix original. Had a budget of $50 million. Obviously, no box office because it was a Netflix straight release. Um, I don't know if you know or not, but would you like to wager a guess as to what you think percentage wise Rotten Tomatoes gave this movie?
I have a feeling. I think. Not I have a feeling, and not I think. I actually looked up what, and it was being panned. People did not like it. Um, so I have. How does Rotten Tomatoes work again? Is it like low means people don't like it, or high means people don't like it?
Low. So low percentage, bad movie. 100% great movie.
I'm thinking it's below 50. I saw like bad reviews.
Yeah, it's way below 50. 23% score
Whew,
on 108 critic reviews.
wow, that's pretty bad. That's low.
So definitely the critics did not enjoy the movie,
They did not. Wow.
which we'll get into it more through our discussion and whatnot. But that kind of sort of puzzles me to an extent. But, and then obviously, before we start the discussion, if you're interested and you haven't seen the movie yet and you're listening to us this far and want to actually go and watch it, you can find it on the Netflix. So you can find it there. And um, just a really quick, brief little whatnot about the movie, just to possibly get you interested if you haven't seen it. Pain Hustlers is a 2023 crime drama film directed by David Yates. Its plot centers on a high school dropout who lands a job with a failing pharmaceutical company in Central Florida, where she soon finds herself at the center of a criminal conspiracy. I think that pretty much sums up the entire plot of the movie.
It's a great word, a couple sentences to sum it up. Yes. Was that off Netflix? Was that Netflix, Bernard? Because they're well known for their short little ways of grabbing attention.
I, I wasn't going to say anything, but I'm definitely a big, huge supporter of pulling information off of Wikipedia.
Ah, okay.
So I did take that off of Wikipedia. So I
Ah,
won't take
okay.
full credit for it, but the idea to take it off of Wikipedia is mine.
That's your
The
idea.
word,
That works.
the words belong to the wiki.
Well, you
So
still used your thoughts to get of where to grab it, to get a good little blurb. That was still appreciated.
exactly. So one last point before we get into the discussion, we need to pause for a second for network identification.
An Evening at the Movies is a proud member of the I Did Not Make These Rankings podcast network. Other shows in the network include Mass Debaters, The Sip List, Crushgasm, Love is Black, Men Are the Prize, Crime Rewind, and Literature Reapers. You can find out all about our shows and more at idnmtrpodcastnetwork.com. Happy listening.
I know it's been a while since you guys have heard that, so I needed to make sure that you guys all remember there's other shows in our amazing network that are great shows that need to be checked out as well. So now, with all of that said, we now return you to your regularly scheduled episode of An Evening at the Movies.
We're going to talk about a movie on Evening at
Yeah,
the Movies.
right? I mean, we're a half an hour into the episode and
Yeah.
we haven't even asked one discussion question yet. So we're going to get lightning round here for the rest of the, well, not necessarily lightning round. We're gonna have our discussion and we're gonna have fun and see where the rest of the episode takes us.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. Let's go. Ooh.
So, all right. So, first easy out of the gate question, obviously, is what was it about this movie that you absolutely fell in love with when you first watched it?
When I first watched it, or that allowed me to choose it?
Okay, both, but you can answer them separately if you want. Because
Okay.
I can see why with this movie that you would have the one that would make you want to watch it, but then obviously there could be reasons why during your watch or after your watch why you would love it as well. So
To watch it, it was, the big names, and there was a trailer. Like, so I watched the trailer, and the trailer I saw was them interviewing employees to hire. And Emily Blunt and Chris Evans were not arguing, but they were disagreeing as to who to hire and who not to hire. And I thought it was funny, and it was an interesting, their perspective on who to hire was interesting, like each of them. And I was like, this looks really interesting and exciting. So that was my initial why to watch it. What kept me watching it was, again, the names. They're very good actors. There were a lot of very good actors in it. And I found the story was sad, but the movie made it fun. If that sounds awful and morbid, it was light without, I didn't cry through the whole thing, but I still found out the story, and I still, I guess, enjoyed it. It made me keep wanting to watch it.
So I personally, like you, well, obviously, I hadn't heard of the movie before you had recommended it,
Okay.
but you recommended it, and I immediately did a Google search. One, to find out where I could find it, and two, anything that I could find out about the movie. And immediately it pops up with, you type it all into Google and hit search, and it pops up with the individual cast pictures. I'm okay, Emily Blunt, Chris Evans, Andy Garcia, Catherine O'Hara. But I'm like, okay, that, because I only have so much of a screen that it's available, and that that's basically about what you could fit onto my screen because I was typing it into my phone. And I'm like, okay, that's a fairly decent cast. I mean, Catherine O'Hara is funny to me.
She's awesome.
Um, I fell in love with her the first time I saw her in Beetlejuice when I was a kid,
Yeah.
and I'm not gonna lie, I can't pronounce her name in the last TV show that I saw her in, but
Oh, the Canadian TV show?
Schitt's
Oh,
Creek.
Canada. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, that M word. I don't know how to pronounce that.
I can't even remember. No, that's out of
I
my
know,
memory. I can't remember.
I know how it's spelled, but I don't know how the hell to pronounce
Yeah.
it. But Home Alone, Home Alone 2. I mean, there's so many great things that she's been in, and that's just her. And she doesn't even. She's not even one of like the marquee stars of the movie. I mean, Andy
She's basically a
Garcia.
side character.
Yeah, Andy Garcia has been. He's still kind of sort of a side character, but you're
Yeah.
starting to get into a marquee star now.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been in hundreds of movies.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, then that basically leaves you with Emily Blunt and
Mm.
Chris Evans.
They were the two
And,
main. Yeah.
and truth be told, nothing against other celebrities, but if you don't know who Emily Blunt and Chris Evans are in today's age, have you ever seen a movie before?
Yes.
I mean,
They are pretty well known, both of them. Yeah.
one of them is Captain America, and the other one
Yes.
is married to Jim Halpert.
If that's the route. Yeah, exactly.
I
You know
mean,
what I think I have to say about Catherine O'Hara? She's amazing. Everything she's amazing. I mean, I saw there was a commercial here in Canada that she did a couple years ago, and that was amazing. So, I don't think she can do anything that's not amazing. I think she's great. But my favorite Catherine O'Hara show is, what was that one? Oh no, now it's gone.
I hate when that happens.
It was a Christopher Guest show, and she was a folk singer, and it was so good. As something wind. Yeah, good call. Look it up.
I'm Googling as we speak.
Yeah, it was, and she played opposite, also Schitt's Creek. Her husband in Schitt's Creek, Levy, Eugene
Eugene
Levy.
Levy. Yeah.
So Eugene Levy was her husband in that show too, and in that movie, and it's Christopher Guest, so it's ad lib, and it is so funny.
What has Christopher Guest been in? We'll just, yeah.
No,
Film,
I
film.
almost said Best in Show, but it's not that one. It was the one he did right after that, I believe.
Let's see. Right after Best in Show, A Mighty Wind.
Yeah, that's the one, A Mighty Wind. Oh my gosh, I laughed that whole show. And I mean, because you get a lot of actors that can improv as amazingly as the ones Christopher gets in his shows, and it just goes. And I mean, yeah. So Catherine O'Hara in that place was really, really good.
She is such a phenomenal talent, and
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I brought up one of my all-time favorite movies a minute ago, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm happy that she's coming back for the sequel next summer,
Oh yeah.
and is supposed to be a part of Beetlejuice 2.
Oh cool.
I wanted a Beetlejuice sequel for many, many
Since
decades.
Beetlejuice.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, and I like for me, I'm dark and mysterious like that, so I tend to gravitate towards like Tim Burton.
Okay.
So, but Michael Keaton in that movie, and then
Hmm.
his ever evolving relationship with the icon that is Johnny Depp.
Oh yeah.
Yes, please, all day long. I mean, anybody that knows me will know. Yeah, I will happily push everything to the back burner for a Tim Burton Johnny Depp collaboration.
Cool.
Yeah, well, maybe not Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but any other Tim Burton Johnny Depp adaptation, probably.
I didn't mind Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It wasn't as good as the original, but I still liked it.
It probably was more faithful to the book than the original,
Okay.
but at the same time, the original for people of our generation have more of a nostalgic experience to it because it was such a
Probably.
big part of our childhood.
Hmm. Well, that and Gene Wilder is, I mean, he's funny.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah. And so you knew when he was going to be in it, it was going to have a layer of funny, right? Johnny Depp, I find, is way more serious, and his shows might have a level of funny, but I don't find he. Oh, that's actually not true. Pirates of the Caribbean, that whole character was pure sarcasm, and
I
yeah,
yeah. 1, 2, 3. I love that franchise. After the third one, I struggled to get through the fourth one, and still have not watched the fifth one.
yeah. I actually don't think I did. I don't think I did. No.
And with as much as I struggled to get through 4, I don't think I'm missing out on anything. With missing out on number 5.
If you haven't seen it after this long, and then you don't personally feel like you're missing out, and you don't feel like you need to watch it.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
So
it's been what, 10 years, 8 years since that movie came out.
it's been a while, yeah.
So yeah, but wow, that was a long tangent to go down,
Yeah.
and it wasn't even about painkillers, but um,
But Catherine O'Hara, come on.
this, this definitely has an underlying feeling of being like my first recording that I ever did with Amanda on her show, The Sip List. Not gonna, I will not allow this episode to go like that. But our the first time I recorded with Amanda, we went. I don't remember exactly how long it was, but a minimum 3 hours long,
Oh wow. Okay.
and that
That's like
it's
a
one of
couple
those things.
break that up into a couple of episodes.
Well, yeah, probably now we've got it down pat to where we can do an episode of both shows in probably about an hour. But
That's impressive.
um, we do advertise our. I mean, she's basically like my sister from another mister,
Nice.
and I'm her brother from another mother. I mean, we personality wise fit together like hand in glove.
That's cool.
So
That's great
it,
when you find those people in life. It's awesome.
it doesn't happen all that often, and
Yeah.
it should happen a lot more than it does. But definitely, yeah. Back to my initial thought though was Chris, Emily, Andy, Catherine. Definitely, as soon as I saw that, I was like, that's a good jumping off point to get me excited to watch this. And then you read the little bit of that plot description about, okay, I kind of sort of see what this is about.
Hmm.
And I'm a little bit intrigued now. And then you start watching the movie, and everything starts growing on you really quickly.
Yeah.
And you can thank a lot of that to, I mean, you get the talent that is Emily Blunt and Chris Evans almost from the beginning. That very first moment is bam, you have her, bam, you have him,
You're right. That was the
and
opening scene. You had them both, didn't you?
yeah, and
That's right.
throughout the rest of the opening, they continue to build
Use
the
them.
plot and grow, and everything
Hmm.
melts together. And then Andy Garcia gets introduced, her mom gets introduced, her daughter gets introduced, who's the actress who played her daughter. I thought did a pretty good job as well.
I feel like she's in something I'm supposed to know because I feel like she's a name too. She was very good though. I thought she did a great, like, amazing job. She fit in with those big stars. Like she held her own.
And that can be a pretty difficult task to try and sink your teeth into,
Oh yeah.
because when you have to share the stage with, or the screen with, somebody as talented as Emily Blunt or Chris Evans or whatever. I mean, Chris Evans is, in my opinion anyway, I feel one of the most underrated actors today,
Mm,
because like he gets all this credit for like being Captain America and all the success that Marvel brought, but at the end of the day, you know, there's other stuff that he's done and all of that as well.
yeah.
So, anyway, getting back on task and speeding along, was there anything about the movie that turned you off and kind of sort of upsetted you?
Well, I think the storyline itself is upsetting. Um, but I mean, I don't. It didn't turn me off because I felt it was an upsetting storyline, and the way they did it, and the way they had that the interviews with the characters,
Mhm.
and that I found was a really good way for you to see how. I mean, they all blamed everybody. They all blamed her,
Mhm.
and it's amazing because she was the only one that had the integrity to speak up. and yet they were all happily, well, it's her fault,
Yeah.
kind of thing. I got into this because of her. And I mean, also, valid point. But it's interesting how, I mean, it's like that in society, right? It's easier to blame somebody else, make it their fault, than take accountability for your own actions.
Oh yeah.
And, I really liked how they did it. That was, you heard it through their words. Um, yeah, it didn't turn me off though. I don't think there was anything that turned me off. I really enjoyed how it showed. I mean, I like to get a little psychological on everything
Mhm.
and compare with society and such. And I really liked how, like I said, the accountability, how, they showed how, as humans, it's so easy to blame somebody else, even though it was your actions that did it. Nobody forced you to do anything.
Nope.
And then there was the whole, how, you know the Andy Garcia's character, he had all these rules. It has to be a PhD, person who holds a PhD, and we need to do this and we need to do that. And but as soon as he got popular and the money poured in, all these rules went out the window,
Yeah.
and greed just rules. Um,
But then by the middle part of the movie, some different type of rules started factoring back in. It's like you couldn't get a face-to-face meeting with him without turning over
yeah,
your cell phone. You
yeah,
had to take your shoes off. You, yeah, I'm not spending $80,000 to have my office floors clean. Nobody
yeah,
wears shoes in the office anymore,
yeah.
and all. It's like, okay, you sir are starting to slip down the road to being a manic.
I thought it started though with he didn't want the, was it the compliance group or something? It was the group that Emily Blunt's character wanted to have in there to make sure they were following all the rules and wouldn't get in trouble. And he was like, "Oh yeah, we don't need that," because I mean, I'm making assumptions here, but it's easy to assume his character didn't want that because he knew what they were doing was wrong, and he didn't want to get called out on that because the money was pouring in, you know. And it's also interesting how the guy who did the study that they ran everything on, this study says this safe. And the guy who did the study was like, yeah, they took one piece of it. They didn't take the whole thing. They
Yeah,
didn't,
you.
they just took what worked for them, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's like history per se, where you can tell a historical story, but you can take pieces of the story and create your own story. To
Oh, exactly.
I had never thought about it like that until I got to an American history class in college,
Mm.
where the teacher basically on day one started the class off. So this is the situation. This is the blah 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 blah, and these are the things that you know about this, right? And we're all like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And he's like, okay, but here's this perspective of the exact same thing. And it's
Exactly.
like, oh, I didn't think about that. And he's like,
Yeah.
technically, textbook publishers and any kind of publisher, writer, whatever the case may be, is telling you their version
Perspective.
of an event.
Yes.
So you have to be mindful of the fact that that may, in fact, be true, but there might be a slightly different road to get there,
Exactly.
or it may not be true,
Hmm.
and it may just be somebody else's, propaganda that they're trying to force down you.
It's not always even propaganda necessarily. I know, like I've done some traveling, and I moved to London, England for a few years, and I met people. Like it's a very much, conglomerate of all kinds of cultures and people from all over the world. And
Mhm.
so I met people from other countries, other than Canada or the UK or United States. And what I found interesting was there were people, I met people from South Africa, and they were not impressed that the UK had colonized them. And yet you talk to somebody in the UK and they're like, oh, yeah, no, they're so happy we came over and helped them do this and this and this. And it was like, um, well, you're both seeing things from a very different perspective.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
and that was quite an eye opener for me. But I just had a conversation actually the other day, and we were talking about how Canada, it's something we've learned, but it was just touched on. I mean, we didn't spend a lot of time on it, but the war with the United States. And yet I know a lot of people in the United States who have never heard of it. And it was like, but this was a huge thing. And you know it, or you've never heard of it?
I've never heard of it.
Seriously? You
And
took
I love.
American history?
And I
Wow.
actually love American history, but
Wow.
it's not something. If it came up throughout my education, it's not something that got a whole lot of attention. So
If I remember correctly, I can't remember the year, but if I remember correctly, the Canadians actually ended up um, taking over the White House, even. Um, because what happened was the United States tried to come into Canada, and we were like, no, thank you, bye bye. And then we came and went into the United States. And we being nowhere
uh,
near me because it was many generations ago.
yeah, no, I definitely don't think I ever heard about that.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? You hear different perspectives. And I mean, that's not
Yeah.
something that, I mean, we we consider it, we won, so we want to talk about it. If you didn't win, do you want to talk about it?
Well, because a lot of American history, you get the, American Revolution, you get
Yes.
the Civil War,
Right.
obviously, you
That too.
get, World War One, you get World War Two, you
Yeah.
get the Korean War, and all of the stuff that, I mean, the Civil War, is a win lose situation
Hmm.
because you have one half of the country fighting the other half of the country. But
Pretty
like,
sure all wars are a win-lose situation.
well, again, yeah, but at the end, I mean, the American Revolution, technically, we won.
I,
Um,
I see what your point is, right? It was just you fighting with yourselves. So is there a win? Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
World War One, we won.
Yeah.
World War Two, we won. Korea, kind of, sort of, we won.
Hmm.
The only one that technically we didn't win per se that gets you know taught a lot about is like the Vietnam War.
Ah, yes. Yeah.
So you know,
Well, I think this the conversation I was in started because that's the only time any, and please don't jinx me. I mean, I don't want to jinx anything, but it is the only time anybody tried to come and take over Canada was you guys, which is probably why we talk about it. We learn about it.
I will be nice and not
Am I not
throw out.
remembering something correctly?
Well, no, 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 no. You're probably remembering everything 100% correctly, but generally, I mean, I was going to make a snide joke about the fact that um, if things hadn't changed significantly in Washington D.C. 3 years ago, who knows what the future of Canada may have been?
Oh, we would have had to be a lot more aggressive, is what you're saying? We're
Well,
generally peacekeepers in the world. We go into countries and, peacekeep.
exactly. And the person who is living at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in D.C. is
Wasn't
a,
really into peacekeeping as much.
yeah, you know who I'm talking about.
It's really hard not to. Yeah.
I mean, even not having him in the White House right now, it's still, you could turn on the news and majority of what they talk about is him. But
We get a lot of United States TV. So, yeah.
well, and you can't help but, especially this time of year when it gets to that stuff, you get a lot of people here who are anti him
Hmm.
that are like, if he wins, I'm going to Canada.
I do know people that have moved because of, yes. I also know people who have, have moved here. And then I also know people who left for different reasons, but also due to the fear, not necessarily of who's in government, but just fear for lives, basically.
Yeah.
I think one person was fearful of their children going to school.
So
There's all kinds of things.
big, big, messy. Yeah,
Where
whatever.
we went on
So
another tangent. This one was less fun and less Catherine O'Hara like.
yeah, we definitely need more Catherine O'Hara tangent. Probably
Yes.
probably not necessarily per se this episode, but um. So before we get to our reviews, was there a character that you thought was most memorable in this movie that you really fell in love with, gravitated to? You know, however you want to interpret that question, because I don't necessarily want to give the ending away because it is so new and there may be people that haven't watched it per
I've
se.
totally spoiled in different pieces that I've already
But
talked about. Yeah.
I think different. I think getting to this point, I think I just want to get because something happens at the end of the movie that you're expecting one thing to happen,
Yeah.
then a certain person in power says, "Oh no, that's not going to happen."
Slight plot twist. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it's not a huge plot twist, but it's
No.
definitely something that you're not expecting to come.
Yeah. I actually thought it was good, that twist. I actually really liked it.
So did I.
Um,
I mean, you get a lot of story. I'm trying to push the conversation right to the edge of that cliff
yeah. Yeah.
and not go over it.
Without
But
sharing. Yeah, exactly.
but no, it's like if you sit down and watch a sports movie, you
Hmm.
know, the underdog always, well, not always, but
Yeah.
95% of the time wins.
You're expecting a certain outcome. Exactly.
So, even in this type of story, you might be expecting a certain outcome.
Hmm.
You may get that outcome, you may not get that outcome.
Yeah.
So,
I
you know,
think that all the characters were great. All the actors were great. Even the daughter. I mean, I just really thought they all did a great job. I mean, I even liked the guy that kept trying to get Emily Blunt fired. He did a good job. He
yeah.
was annoying and I wanted to punch him in the throat. He was just annoying. And, probably that was a trigger response from experiences of my own in offices. But,
Yeah,
I thought,
offices can be very cutthroat.
oh, they're awful. Yeah, I'm not a fan any longer. But I thought everybody did an amazing job. I'm going to go with Emily Blunt is my favorite. She took a character that in a could have been unappealing and not liked, and she really made me gun for her. Like I was like feeling for her. I was, good for you. Oh, woe is you. I thought she did a really great job with that character.
I think I will wholeheartedly agree with that. I think I will take the opportunity to go the other side of the coin. And because as great as Emily was,
Hmm.
the greatness was helped created by Chris Evans.
Oh yeah, they
But
contrasted each other very well.
at the same yeah, exactly. At the same time, you can't say Chris is better than she was because Chris is great because of Emily. Emily was great because of Chris.
I thought, see, and I'm on the side where I think Emily could pull this off with anybody else, whereas I feel Chris Evans got a boost because of Emily Blunt.
I could see where you're coming from with that. I
Because I
mean,
think that if it was somebody else, it could have made his character look worse, geekier. Um, like he came off looking like a really strong, confident guy. Um, it's the ending where you're kind of doubting his confidence a little, but only because in my mind, if you can't take accountability, your confidence lacks. But that's just me as a human being,
Sure.
personal.
But I mean, I guess at the same time, it's kind of sort of a thing where when you have that much money involved
Mhm.
and that level of greed, I
Yeah.
mean, you develop a lifestyle that you're living that,
Mm. Oh
I
yeah.
mean, do you really want to
It's
step up
fear.
and take accountability for something and then run the risk of
Lose
having
it.
it all go
Yeah.
away in the
Well, I
blink
mean,
of an eye?
that's us as human beings, right? We're all afraid. We're afraid of losing everything, anything we have in our lives. Oh, I got to be careful of this because this could happen, or oh, I can't do that because this will happen. So we all do it. I thought that was really great how they made it. These characters so true in that's how we are as human beings.
Mhm.
Um, and was it Emily Blunt did say that. She said that you think when you get money, all your problems will be solved. And I'm obviously not word for word. I'm not quoting her or
No,
anything. But once you get to that new level of income, that new level of money, you have the same problems just in a whole different way. You
no,
know?
I know exactly what you're talking about because it's the whole, I guess you could say, curse of the lottery.
Yes.
If you go out and win, you know, say $50 million lottery, now all of a sudden you've got relatives coming out of the works that
Yeah.
with their hand out that you haven't seen in 10 years,
Yes.
or you've got you know people knocking on your door, wanting you to donate
Charity, donate.
charities and
Yeah. Can you
all of
pay
that. And it's
more
like,
because you have more money than me? Or.
well, yeah, like the
Exactly.
with the daughter's school at the beginning when
Exactly.
she gets kicked out for arson and she gets her in time
Yeah.
after she starts to build up some money, gets her, accepted into the prep school,
Yeah.
and the head of the school is all like, "Okay, she's accepted,
Yeah.
but you have secondary tuition," and she's all like, "Well, I'm capable of fully paying the tuition right now," and she's like, "Well, what's the secondary to it?" She's like, "Well, we have this, this, and this. So could you possibly be interested in paying double tuition?"
Yeah. She was
And she,
basically was extortioning. She was extortion.
uh huh,
Your daughter can get into the school if you're willing to pay double, because we have very limited spots. And I think
yeah,
that's when Emily was talking about her character was talking about you get
same
to a new
problems.
level, same problem, just different way. Yeah.
Yeah,
You still have, somebody trying to extortion more money out of you.
yeah, exactly. And everybody's always trying to get money the easiest way possible. So, not
Yes.
necessarily saying it, yeah, but um, so all right. So, if you were to rate the movie out of five, with one being bad and five being the most awesomest movie of all time, what would you give the movie for a score?
I'm so bad at these. I always give people fives. Unless you annoy me, then it's going to be a four. If I found a lot of problems, it's going to be a
I,
two or a three.
I was really bad about that when we first started. Everything was a five, five,
Yeah.
five, 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 and then I started thinking about it. It's like, well, okay, this I said this was a five, but then I gave this movie a four, and they're not that different in score. And realistically, is there a perfect movie out there that warrants having a five?
I look at it as reviews are how you feel after you're done either watching a movie, reading a book. So it's all based on your feelings. And if
Exactly.
you finished, being and you were entertained, you're going to want to give it a five.
Yeah.
Is how I look at it.
Well, and it's all we're not professional critics by any stretch of the
No,
imagination.
no.
So obviously, a whole lot of the show is basically how the movie connects with you on an emotional level and
Yeah.
how much of an enjoyment it creates in your heart.
Hmm.
So, which is why I'm more than welcome or willing to let people rate movies however they want to do it. So
I mean, I really liked it. I would probably give it, 4 point something or 5 or something, just because now you make me feel like I need to reconsider how I give my reviews. But
well, you're how
I
you want to go 4 point whatever. If you
I
want to go
like, 4.85. I really liked it. And finished that movie entertained, more knowledgeable, feeling like I felt connected to the characters as human beings. Like I said, this show showed how we as human beings behave in a lot of the same ways, and I thought that was really good. That's, to me, that's how I like to leave a movie or book.
I would probably for myself go with a 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
Just you know, again, there may have been moments where the movie kind of may have slowed down a little bit, but
Hmm.
as a whole, in the grand scheme of things, I felt like it was a great movie. I felt like
Hmm.
the cast was great. I felt like the direction was great.
Hmm.
I felt like I laughed at times. I
Yeah.
felt like I learned stuff at times.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, when it comes to a movie that is investigating or informing people about the pitfalls of big pharma, which ultimately is in a lot of ways what the movie is about.
Pretty much what the movie's about. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it, not to go into my whole personal, but I've got health issues where I am on prescriptions, basically for quote unquote the rest of my life. But it's like you kind of sort of start to get that thought in your head, like, is this just something I'm taking to maintain a certain level of make me feel like I'm possibly getting better, but keeping me just at that point where you know they can still keep fleecing my money out of me and making me buy these pills, or you know whatever is it? Do I have a condition that actually is not curable? To each their own, and that's one whole big conspiracy theory that you know the listeners
Well,
can feel how they want to feel
yeah.
about it. I don't want to necessarily push them one way or the other.
Well, here's my whole life. I knew that doctors got kickbacks for writing prescriptions. So it's something I've known my whole life. And I have a thing where I take medication for certain things. I also have health issues, but mine's more from injuries and concussions and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I found alternative ways to get better. But I have used the drugs that were recommended to me. They didn't help me. So I found alternative ways that didn't involve drugs. And so, I mean, I think that you have to do what's right for you. If it's right for you to take the drugs, then take the drugs. If it's not right for you, then don't do it. You can't, you don't do something because somebody else does it. You do what's right for you.
And that actually is a rather, I will say, wholesome message to wrap up the discussion on and move into our conclusion. So, obviously, I want to thank Teresa for being here and joining us on this amazing episode. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me today, Casey. I really enjoyed it. It was great.
Um, and honestly, I enjoyed it so much that I would definitely like to extend an invitation for you to come back again anytime you want.
Watch a movie and then talk about it? Yeah, okay, sign me up.
Yeah,
I'm good with that. Thank you.
not a problem. And it was definitely a lot of fun. And I look forward to, I won't necessarily say a lot because I don't want it to come across as you're obligated now to be on like every other episode. That's not
That's
the
okay.
case.
I'm good with boundaries and saying no. So if I don't want to, I will just say no.
But no, definitely 100%. You are absolutely more than welcome to come back. If we've got something on the schedule that grabs your attention and you would like to be a part of it, all you have to do is reach out and let me know. If you've
Cool.
got an idea for a movie
I
that,
do because I totally want to give you something you've not done before.
okay,
I really want to do that for you. I see. I'm doing it for you.
are you, well, wait, are we sure it's something that I haven't seen, or is it a part of the genre that we discussed earlier?
Part of the genre we discussed earlier.
Okay, then you more than likely, because I can probably count on one hand how many movies out of that genre I've watched.
Oh,
And
so you have seen some. Sorry, I misunderstood and thought you did not have experience.
oh, I about that much experience, not a
Okay.
whole lot.
Okay.
I I probably have seen 3
Really?
that I could think of right off the top of my head.
Really?
One of
Oh,
which was done just a couple months ago on
okay.
the show.
Oh, okay,
Because,
cool.
um, but we can definitely discuss that. Um,
I'd like that.
um,
Sounds fun.
other than that, coming up on. Wait a minute. I got. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Obviously to the I don't know how I forgot the listeners because
Because
without
I
the
probably
listeners,
started talking.
we would not be here. Our fan base is incredible, and I am very happy each and every day that we have them, and they're the ones that keep me coming back and recording the show every week. So, thank you guys for being here. Other than that, coming up in, we've got a whole lot of stuff coming up over the next few months, and I'm not going to go all the way into it because, as you guys all know who listen, I can be kind of a stickler for planning, and I'm not going to lie, I've got ideas for shows all the way out through probably April. So, but definitely coming up in the new year, we've got an episode on the Fifth Element. Um, Jeremy and Chansey from Maniacal Music Musings will be here. Let's see. In February, Amanda and I are going to be discussing African American cinema with approval of the list from Dre and Harvey from the network. So definitely stay tuned for that as well because we haven't done a whole lot of African American cinema in 3 years. I don't know why. They're great movies, but we'll get into it in February. And then obviously in um, March, we have the movies that everybody should see at least once in their lifetime theme coming up. So I haven't decided, or we haven't decided what movies will pop up during March, but I feel like that's a good theme, and people can get good ideas for movies to watch out of it. So stay tuned in the group, obviously, and stay updated as to what's coming up. But again, thank you to Teresa for being here.
Thank you
This
for
was a
having me
lot of
today.
not a problem, and thank you obviously again to the listeners. And um, yeah, at the end of the day, we hope you guys all come back for an evening at the movies. Have a good week, guys. We'll see you next week.